Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of the Fifth People Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Chris, the intellectual introvert, and I'm joined today by the Collector.
Hey, this is David.
And the Deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete.
In today's Mini Meeple episode, we're going fishing. But instead of putting on waders and freezing our bits, we're tossing dice and collecting chits as we play Lure. You need to be early and quick to catch the big one, so let's get right to it. Lure is a 2 to 5 player bidding and dice chucking game set in the world of competitive fishing. It's a fish eat fish world out on the water, and it's your job to outmaneuver your competition to reel in the big one. At the start of the game, each player receives 7 dice consisting of 5 standard 6-sided dice plus 2 special dice with 12 and 20 sides. Players keep these dice behind their player screens along with a randomly received lure chit, which can be used to augment their dice rolls. Each round starts with the splash phase, where fish cards are added to the pond and become available to be caught. Each fish card contains 3 important pieces of information. The catch number shows what the total value of your rolled dice must be in order to catch the fish. The catch requirements specify limitations, such as certain values being required on 1 or more of your dice, a maximum number of dice to be rolled, or similar restrictions. And finally, each fish is worth a certain number of victory points shown on the card. Once new fish cards are added, the cast phase begins, where players secretly decide which and how many of their dice they will roll, as well as whether or not they will use any lure chits. These decisions are revealed simultaneously. In the fish phase, players roll their dice and attempt to catch fish, taking their turns in order from fewest dice rolled to most. The player can catch as many fish as their dice allow, and once a fish is caught, it's no longer available for anyone else. Any player who doesn't catch any fish in a round draws a lure to help in future rounds. For the next round, all 6-sided dice are available to be rolled again, but any special dice rolled can't be rolled again until one additional round has passed. The game ends after the round when the last fish card is drawn from the deck. Players then tally their points from fish they caught, and the player with the most points wins the game, while the rest of the players go jump in a lake. A Deep Waters expansion is also available, adding a 4-sided die, tenacious fish which are not automatically bagged the first time you catch them, new catch requirements, and a trophy point mechanism. Lure was designed by Satoru Nakamura and was first published in 2024 by Allplay. All right, guys, what is it about Lure that makes you want to take the bait?
I like rolling dice. It's kind of a nice mechanic. I like the way that it works in this game. There's a little bit of hidden information when you're trying to decide how many dice to roll. It's a lot of odds. If you're good at calculating those odds, what the numbers are going to come up, I think you can do well in this game. I think this is one that you really need to think about, and it's not just throwing dice and seeing what happens. So I think there's some strategy behind the dice that you choose, when you choose them, and then when you miss too, you get that extra lure, and that can be helpful in future rounds. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Pete said, I do like that there's a variety of different fish to catch, and they all have different things on them. So it really does make you think about what dice should I use. Do I really want to go after that really big one with a high 20? I have to have 25 plus, but I look at my dice and there's a couple small fish out there, or do I just want to go for the little tiny ones? And I think adding the trophies in there, I know we played with the expansion. Sometimes you're debating, is it just worth a trophy so that I don't get -7 points at the end of the game? Because I think that sometimes weighs on you too. So a lot of times I'll go lower just because I'll be like, I just don't want to be -7 points no matter what. Because I don't think you can win this game if you lose 7 points at the end.
Yeah, and I think what Pete said is really true. I first, when I saw this game, I'm like, okay, this is just all luck. And I no longer believe that. There certainly is... strategy just seems like such a strong word, but there's some strategy. But I played this online Board Game Arena with my brother a couple of weeks ago, DJ, and he beat me 8 out of 10 times in this game. So that tells me that that's not just dice rolling at all. He was making the right call and figured me out. What is Chris going to do? And I'm always adding that one extra die, and it was just him just squeaking under me. I had some bad rolls too, but that's going to happen. I think you have a tendency to say, oh yeah, the dice were mean to me. Now, David's D20 today was mean to him. Okay, it just can't come kind of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, except maybe the one time it came up with 1.
Yeah,
but there's it's more than just luck. I think there's a tendency maybe to look at it and say, oh, this is just rolling dice and see what happens. It's not just that. There is strategy there, and it's making the right decision at the right time.
Yeah, we played two games just before recording this, and it was my introduction to the game. The first game, I was really trying to feel out how to actually catch the fish, because that is a key mechanic. That's the main mechanic, and I didn't have very many fish. And then David took one of my fish away from me by having the most trophies. So the second game that I played, I had figured out it's really how much fish can you get with the least amount of dice. And I think that's really trying to min-max what you're going for, because a lot of times I'm trying to calculate, can I just roll 3 dice? Am I going to hit that 12 with, a 12-sided die and maybe 2 6-siders? Or do I just do a 12-sided die with 1 6-sider and throw in a lure, which is going to give me 3 extra points? So, that those decisions are there, and I think it makes the game kind of interesting.
Yeah. I think there's like that push your luck element, which I really like about this game, because I mean, there's no better time where, you only pull out 1 dice and your opponents pull out more, and you just sneak by them, just under them. Maybe you pull out 2 and they all pull out 3. Just the look on their face like, oh, they if they would have just pulled 1 less dice, you'd at least be tied going into the roll. And so I do find that component very fun. I'm always thinking, I want to do 2, but I think, I want to do 3, but I think Pete will do 3, so I'm going to go with 2 and just push my luck. And I do think there's a push your luck element to that. And my dice rolls weren't really good, but I do like that every round, even if you don't roll something, you get to catch a lure into your hand to try to make it a little bit more powerful next time. And there was one time, that moment in that game where, I thought, oh, for sure, I have 1 dice. I think there was like, you have to have 1 dice to, win 1, and then another one. I was like, I could win 2 on here. So I grabbed my 2-point lure that I have to win a fish in. And I'm thinking, there's no way. Like, I have a 1 through 4, and I'm going to win this one. And then you guys pull out like 4 lures apiece and also have 1 dice. And I'm like, oh, didn't see that coming. So not only did I waste all my lures that I put out there, I didn't win any fish either. So I didn't see those moments sometimes coming in there. And I thought it was pretty funny when you guys all have the same amount of dice, and in my head I'm like, there's no way they're going to do 1. So
yeah, the other thing I like about this game is it's easy to learn. Even if someone isn't a game player, I actually just recently bought it. I'm going to go visit my son in a couple of weeks. He is a game player, but usually if I'm playing something with my son, my wife can't join in, and she's usually not a game player. But if it's something she can play with my son when we don't get to see him, she'll do it. And I felt like this was a game that at least is different enough, interesting enough for my son to give it a shot for during a visit. He's not going to be one of his favorite games, but my wife can join us too. It's going to be easy to teach it to her, and then she'll be able to jump in. And then the other thing, it's quick, and it plays up to 5. And so a lot of games, we're the 5th meeple. We have 5 people that often go around the table. We could play this with 5 right out the box. You don't need to get the extra expansion and spend extra money to do that, to be able to play with 5. It's 5 right out of the box. So I appreciate that too, given the gaming group that we play with.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of downtime. I think the action's pretty quick. I played it with 2 players and 5 players, and I find that the action moves fairly fast. No matter what, I think it gets more chaotic when you have 5 people, because you tend to often choose the same amount of dice. So it's a weird dynamic where it's like we all have 4 dice and the fish is like 12 or above, and we're all hoping for the lowest number we can get with our 4 dice, so we get to go first. So I always think that's kind of funny too in this game.
Yeah. Anything about lure that makes you want to pack up your tackle box and head home?
The only thing that I didn't really like about the game was if you can catch multiple fish on your turn, you get to take them all. And especially if you're the lowest and you're snagging 2, sometimes even 3 fish out there, and the rest of us are left in the boat just trying to get some more lure and throw that out there. I think that thematically, that's the only thing that kind of threw me off a little bit, that you can take as many fish as you can on that turn.
Yeah, you don't spend dice on your turn. It's whatever you can get, you get. I think thematically it's kind of weird, but I do think that by being able to do that, it makes your decision of how many dice am I going to throw that much more important, because that if someone has less dice, they're going to be able to potentially snatch them all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It's just that's the only thing that's a little weird when you're trying to explain the game and, teaching somebody that, take as many as you can get.
I mean, I don't think the player boards are the greatest. We're just going to talk component-wise. I get it. It's a small box game, but the player boards, there's a lot that goes behind those. I kept knocking mine over, showing what dice I had. I don't think it's a secret necessarily, but sometimes I have dice in my hand and then I'm knocking my board over trying to put my fist in the middle to, show everybody. And I'm like, oh, well, there's my D20 still behind my player board. But the other thing I think is that there's some nuance to the rules. I think the first couple of times we were taught this game, the person who had taught us, I want to call it, maybe it's house rules, maybe they didn't even know, but there's definitely rules that we were playing with that when we played the second time or third time around, I had played this quite a bit before, and then we had just played with Pete right before we did this, and Chris is like, oh, I played this on BGA, we got some rules wrong, and I'm like, really? Because I'd never even thought to read the rules because I was taught the game. I thought it was simple enough, but that just goes to show you should read the rules because there are some significant differences in the way the game played, versus what we were doing. But I didn't have less fun playing either way. So
yeah, and
that's where it goes.
And that's a great point too, David, because I said, hey, it's not that hard of a game, and okay, I'm going to be able to bring my wife into it, but then I'm going to have to explain to her, well, no, that lure counts when you add up the total. It doesn't count for a die, and you're allowed to adjust this, but you're not allowed to adjust that. All those different rules. That may be the thing that makes her walk away from the table and say, okay, I changed my mind, I'm not going to play. But then, because it's all play, they do the rule book where it's just 4 pages, it's little square pages, and inevitably in almost every game they put out there are rules that, okay, they're trying to fit it all on 4 pages and they're leaving stuff out, right? Well, no, they're just leaving stuff out, right? And so we had a couple rules, well, we're just going to go with this, right?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, there's a lot of information on that player board, which was helpful. And again, when I was looking at it, I see the little icon out there. I can easily look, and I don't have to dig through the rules. So I'll give them props for at least putting most of those icons on there. Again, how to explain some of those intricacies on that. That's just part of gaming in general.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like, well, it's light enough to where you can bring people in, but then you've got the little rules lawyering and all of that kind of stuff. And to go back to what you said, David, that player board, I agree. Hey, it's in a small box, but how many times did I just show you guys what lures I had? Exactly. Because I can't keep it in front of me. The other thing I'll say, I want to talk a little bit about the expansion. We did play with the expansion. I played it both with and without. So with the expansion, you get these tenacious fish where you have to catch them twice and someone can steal them. That's pretty cool. But you also have this trophy mechanism where certain fish have trophies on them. Whoever gets the most trophies gets 7 points. Whoever has the least number of trophies loses 7 points. I think it's way too swingy. It's probably better with 5 players, but I've traditionally played this with 2-player game, it's a 14-point swing. It's ridiculous. Even with the 3-player game, there's only one person that's not part of that swing. That's a 14-point difference. Yeah. I think it's a little too much. Maybe it's not as bad with the 5-player game when you have more players because there's a number of players not being impacted by that, but I still think it's a really big difference there.
Yeah, I think they could have done it differently. Maybe, you get so many trophies, it could equal a certain amount of points. They could have just said, hey, if you have over 5 trophies, you get 3 extra points or something. But yeah, it's very, very swingy.
Yeah, those fish that do have the trophies generally are worth less points. So there is that little bit of the balance on there. So just keep that in mind too. With that swinginess of it, you are kind of giving up a little bit on the points on the front end to hopefully win some extra points at the end.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem I see with that, though, Pete, is just like the times I played with that expansion is that the person who doesn't have a lot of trophies also normally doesn't have a lot of fish. It's just like one of those weird mechanics where they should have more fish, but maybe they didn't play their dice right. So a lot of times they don't have a lot of fish either. I think, Chris, probably both times you had the least amount of fish. I'm not quite sure.
I had a decent number the first game, but the second time I definitely didn't have many.
Yeah, well, because Pete had the least amount of fish the first game, had to give me his trophies because he didn't have any trophies, and then you had the least amount the second time I think out of us. And
it's a little punishing if you're down and out already. It kind of hurts a little bit. I could see maybe not losing your 7 points, and maybe the person who has more should just get 7.
Yeah.
At least then I don't feel like I'm getting penalized for doing poorly already.
David, let's go to the collector's corner for this. It's a small box. It's from All Play. What are we looking at price-wise?
Yeah, right now, if you go look this up on Amazon, it's running $24. That's without the expansion. This is one of the few times I'll actually recommend going to All Play's website. And a lot of times, if you're looking for a deal on games and you're just going through your normal channels, try to visit the publisher's website because sometimes they will sell their game on there. And for this instance, they're selling the game and the expansion for $26. Yes, there is a $4 flat shipping fee, but for $30, I mean, I can't really fault it. You're getting 40 dice for $30. I mean, the dice are actually, I feel like, pretty decent quality. And that's a lot of dice in a game. So I'd say go to All Play, give them your money on that front. But if you're looking used, it's somewhere between $10 and $15 if you can find it. But a lot of them, I mean, I've seen on eBay recently, they're like $25 and they're still commanding it. But now that it's on Amazon, you're probably not going to get that price point anymore.
Yeah, I personally think it's too high priced, even though I just said I bought it. I've been wanting to buy it for quite some time, and I didn't do it because I just couldn't convince myself to do that. I think it's a little overpriced. I bought it because, okay, I'm going to visit my son, and I'm trying again desperately to find that game that my wife's willing to play, and so I took a flyer on it. I think it's a little high.
You know, I've mentioned before that I play games at lunchtime at work with the people I work with every day. And this one kind of hits a sweet spot on two parts. Number one, it goes up to 5 players. A lot of times we have a little bit more than that, but sometimes we do have just 5. I think it would be fun to play at. The other thing is that it's 15 minutes and then we're done. And that's something that we can get to the lunch table, play 1, maybe even 2 games of, and put the game away and be done. So to me, that's a big plus when it comes to, you know, limited time and how much. The setup's really quick. It's not that hard. You flip all the chips upside down and mix up the cards and deal them out, however many cards we flip over, and we just go through, and the game moves quickly. So those are 2 pluses for me on this game.
All right, well, the sun's getting hot. The bugs are starting to bite more than the fish. But before we pack up our gear, let's make one final cast. We're each going to rate this on a scale of 1 to 5. If we rate it a 5, we're telling you, go and buy it. It's getting our 5th Meeple seal of approval. If we're rating it a 1, we're saying stay away from it, burn it if it comes into your possession. I'll start with Pete.
Yeah, this one's really close. I'm going to give this a 4. I think if this is something that you're looking for with the filler kind of game that I'm talking about, something that you can play for 15 minutes, relatively easy to teach. After 1 or 2 plays, people are going to get it. It may be a 5 for me, but right now I'm going to give it a 4 with that caveat. So I'm going to go with 4. David.
Yeah, Pete, I think you hit this on the head. I want to give it a 5, but I'm thinking I'm at a 4 too. I do agree with, a little bit with what Chris had said. Maybe if you find this game at a convention for $20, then maybe it's a 5 just based on price. But a 4 for me, every time I play this game, I shouldn't like it as much as I should. I think that's the weird part. I do have a lot of fun. I do get a little bit of strategy out of it. And it's a game that I actually play with my dad when he comes to visit, and my brother. And so they don't play games as much as I do. And so this is a game where they'll actually play. We can actually sit in front of a TV and just kind of play this as we're watching sports. So it is something that you can do and have something going on in the background and have it be fun. So a 4 for me on this one. I'm going to throw it over to Chris.
Yeah, I'm also going to give this a 4. I was teetering between a 4 and a 3, and I settled on a 4 just based on, hey, for what this game is intended to be, it does it very well. I think the price is a little high. I'm going to give it a 4. I will say, though, looking at the expansion, I would give the expansion personally a 2. I just don't think it's worth it. That's why I didn't buy it. I like the idea of having extra cards. The Tenacious Fish, I don't know. I don't know that one speaks to me, and I really don't like the trophy mechanism. And so that's 2 of the 3 things that expansion goes. I would give the expansion a 2, the main game a 4. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on the expansion piece.
I haven't played without the expansion, so I wouldn't have even known it was a expansion if you didn't tell me.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I just always just threw it in from the get-go. So, I don't have an opinion on that one.
All right, well, those were our thoughts on Lure. We all gave it a 4. If it sounds like something you'd enjoy, go out and buy it because it's hitting a sweet spot for all of us. But that brings us to the end of this mini episode of the 5th Meeple Board Game Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion on Lure. And if you'd like to get in touch, just email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Of course, we'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button too. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, may you always catch what you're fishing for. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Hasta luego.
If it sounds like your cup of tea, go out and give it sounds your cup of tea. If it sounds like, good Lord, I must be ready for bed.